How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to review this thing, the YAR87. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but I got a bit distracted, so yeah, we'll get stuck into it. The engine, obviously top one, it's 3 notches from the top on the power to weight, but to be honest, all the Scout ones are kind of, I wouldn't say underrated, more underpowered, but that's not bad for a Scout, is basically what I'm saying. Gearbox is the freeway, it's quicker than the SnowRunner, and I never feel the need, like, especially with this gearbox, that you need the SnowRunner one. There is no raised suspension. As for the tyres, there's enough selection, but you see these ones are narrower than the rear wheel arch, whereas these next two coming up, you got that one, and then there's that one which looks a bit more like it's got more bite in the grip, but if I wouldn't bite, I'll put the chained on. But the reason I'm going for these is because they sit wider, and they look like they're quite spongy and soft, like they sort of, you know, balloon out to the terrain pretty well. That's the third lot of mud tyres. The chained is basically the mud tyres with chained on though. Yeah, but again, usually I do put chained on, but for this, yeah, I'm going with these. And the reason why, part of it, is they sit wider than the rear arches, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but to me, overall, it can help. As for winches, you just seen there, I just changed it from the autonomous to the advanced, but I put it back to the autonomous, and again, you'll see why. It's just one thing I would say is worth getting. The roof rack, it's not majorly affected by the roof rack bug, but it is a bit. The roof rack's got 300 repair points, 120 fuel, and 4 spare tyres, I think it is. The snorkel goes pretty basically up to the roof, which was a good sign. As for all the things you can put on, put a pair of tits on, you can put... There's no point in putting horns or anything really. Well, the roof rack could get rid of them anyway. That light bar on the front, it'll get rid of that as well, but there's like its own light bar on the roof rack if you put that on. But once you take it off, you got to remember to put those back on. Yeah, they're the sort of different options. Again, I'm going for that one. It's got the most fog lights. It looks pretty cool as well, I think, so that's what I'm doing. As for the bumpers, if you look here, it's basically, I sort of line it up with the boxes in the background. That's the stock one, and you have to have a bumper on, like, otherwise I'd remove them. But the first one up is like, it's a bit higher up than the stock one, but it does stick out a bit further. But overall, the line, like the angle, is pretty good. So the next one is just lower down. It's about the same as the stock, but it sits lower, and that one is probably the worst, especially because it's got that little plate along the bottom. But overall, the angle on this is very good anyway. However, they also sit narrower than the truck, which I like overall. Yeah, I just quite like that one, like with the bars over it and stuff. I don't really know, you know, if it makes a hell of a lot of difference, but yeah, I prefer the look of that. It looks like it sits a bit higher at the sides as well, so that's what I decided to go for. As for the rims, there's only one lot, or there is at least on these big fat chunky tyres. That was it in black, grey and white as well. I can't, no, I don't think I ever did paint this. Oh no, it's my Lodestar that's looks pretty nice in white. Yeah, you got this one that's like a black and red, like black wheel arches and all that sort of stuff, and the rest was red. This is like two-tone blue, so similar thing. I don't dislike that, I just don't like it enough that I'd choose it. I do like that. The only reason I didn't pick it is because there's so many, that colour option is on quite a lot of trucks, and I've got it on quite a lot of trucks or something similar, so other than that though, the yellow one is very nice. That, it doesn't look, in a weird way, it does suit it, but the green is just, at least on my TV, it doesn't look the right colour green. But yeah, that's the what I'm going for, is the red with black sort of, yeah, wheel arches, bonnet, sunroof bit. As for looks, as soon as I seen it originally when I got the game, I was like, oh yes, it's a 6-wheeler, looks pretty cool. Nice quick steering. We'll get into that a bit later, but it reacts quick. When you turn like all-wheel drive on and off, I don't, like, I've not really done it on every truck, but it just disables the rear axle, not the middle axle. As for inside, having a look around, pretty nice views. It looks pretty modern inside. The mirror, it's sort of like hiding behind the door a bit. Yeah, plenty of old shit handles, plenty of room in the back. That's what she said. I've actually got a Not a wing mirror, a rear view mirror. And yeah, as for that mirror, it's hiding behind the door a tiny bit. I mean, it's a pretty small mirror, but I'm not really bothered either way, if I'm honest. I can officially see out the back because I can see like a bit of the garage door. I like that I can look down at my tyres there, so yeah, if I did need to look at them, I can. As for the horn, I quite like it, to be honest. It reminds me of a fire engine horn, and yeah, for a Scout, like it's alright. Well, the Navistar's got a crap horn. I'd rather that horn on the Navistar. As for revs, it goes up to about 4,100. What I did notice, and I forgot to test, but when I turn the engine off and then start it up and hold the revs, it flicks up to 4 almost instantly, whereas you see when I just started it up and then applied the revs later, it climbs slower. I don't know yet if that means anything, if it's worth knowing, but I noticed it, so I'll let you know. As like, this is more a fault of the gearbox, I think, than the truck or the Scout vehicle, but when you set off, it's very slow to get through the gears. You're best off just banging L1, and within 10 feet you're already in like 4th or 5th gear. Trailers, obviously, are only a Scout vehicle, so you can only have like a single slots, double slot, and a Scout fuel trailer. So if I went flat out round there's a chance it could have rolled. Like, I'm not hating on this thing at all, but it isn't amazing for not rolling. And again, that's why I prefer the chains sit narrower than these big wide tyres. So yeah, that's one thing where I believe it sort of helps not tip in the first place. It's still, there's stuff that, you know, is harder to tip than this. Coming along here though, I have to say, first gear auto is very nice. It often is the answer to a lot of things. Sometimes now it'll try and jump up into second and that. It seems to jump back down into first very smoothly, but yeah, just even if it goes into second or third and you want it to go back to first, in this sort of terrain, just tap L1 and it'll jump back down. But I'm not saying high is useless, and it doesn't stall badly in high or anything, but just first gear auto is quite often very nice. See, this is just little things like this though. That gap there, if I ever needed to squeeze through some gap, it's not happening. And then, oh, it didn't go that time. There's a couple of clips coming up in about 5 seconds then, but I couldn't get through that gap. So the Loaf could, the TUZ166 I'm sure would, and so on. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's a Scout and it'd be nice. This was just before I was doing the review. I was just testing. There's the chain tyres on it. I genuinely can't get through it. I got about halfway and then that was it. Once my front tyres had nothing to wiggle on, like, I was stuck. But then this was just after when I've got these tyres on. This was like attempt number 2. And as I reverse, clip that rock, and right, watch now when I land. See it do that little hop. Rather than trying to roll back to its wheels, it kind of flicks itself. And I think it's partly to do with the rear wheel arches that they stick out. They kind of, I don't know, like, well, you've seen what it did, and it's pretty renowned. Well, amongst me and the Loafs, this is a bit renowned for. It's not really bad for tipping, but once it goes, it can be a bit of a pain in the arse to get back on its wheels, and you'll see that very shortly. Going round there, a little bit of a wide steering angle. The problem with, right, the steering is nice, but you see that middle axle? When you're trying to steer, you're trying to scrub that axle slightly against whatever terrain you're on, and that's fighting back against your steering all the time. So even though the steering is nice, like, yeah, it's can be cancelled out sometimes. You see how there, I should, like, most stuff would flip instantly. This dragged me all the way up that slope, and then when I got to this slope, which is pretty steep, I'm almost tipping just sat on the slope. But yeah, eventually it got me to my wheels, but this can be a bit of a pain in the arse for just dragging itself along the side, and it just won't flip for bloody ages. But yeah, that's why, another reason I've got the autonomous winch on, because flipping is a possibility, and flipping it back, like, say if I had the Loaf trying to flip, the Loaf would flip this a piece of piss, but it just, this truck might want to get dragged along for half a mile, so having a winch on this that you can just try and reach out and grab stuff is just easier than keep doing a massive 360 around the truck trying to find which angle you want to winch from. I cut a chunk of that out. You see me, I got up that hill just fine. I did reverse it a bit keenly, so... But it did roll, it did land on its side, and it took me about a minute to flip it back to its wheels. So that's why I edited it out, because this video I was trying to, you know, I try and aim for about 40 minutes, but there comes to a point where, yeah, it's like there's no point in editing something out if I think it's worth knowing. To be honest, all the way up here it was like a bit, I mean, I think it's a genuine representation. It's not got as tight a turning circle as like the Loaf. It does sit a little bit wide. It's at least as wide as the Hummer and stuff, so this is what it was like trying to go up a, you know, little tight wiggly road. But yeah, it was kind of like, well, shall I edit this little bit out and that bit, and in the end it's like, well, I'm doing a review of it, so like there's sort of, yeah, if I'm just going to edit all the bits out where it's not flying up like a bloody dolphin or something, then, well, the dolphin would be crap going up here because it's quite long and it's got like it's got a nice deep lock angle, but it's still not got an amazing turning circle, so yeah, I'd be like 5-point turning on every bloody corner. But this isn't far behind, if you know. Well, it's definitely not as bad as like the Azov turning circle or the Twin Steer or the P12, etc. But for scouts, it's not amazing. It's certainly the Tatrin has got a shocking turning circle, considering it's got 2 axles that steer. I think that's a purposeful nerf, but yeah, that's definitely by far the worst turning circle, I reckon, of the scouts at least. So we got up here eventually. Like I say, it wasn't horrible or anything. The first roll was like slightly, I just went wide and whatever. I went wide, but I was steering and I'm fighting that middle axle a bit, so I went. It doesn't always fight the axle, it depends what angle you're on. So sometimes you've got your full steering access, other times that sits into the ground and then you haven't, so it's like sometimes it can take it away from you a bit and it can catch you out on a corner. But yeah, I could, if I had another go and I had enough goes, I could get up that mountain first time. It gets over barriers pretty damn well. I was pretty impressed here because I've not even got the chain on. But one thing I will say about this truck, or Scout, whatever, I don't think it's got any weight, or not a lot, in the chassis. And I think it's got a bit of weight in like the cab and the body, but not necessarily up at the roof. But yeah, I personally believe this was probably originally designed with chassis weight, and for whatever balancing reasons, I don't know, I reckon they've either removed it or reduced it. Like, I reckon this should be more bottom heavy, and I wouldn't say it's particularly top heavy, especially with these wider tyres on. It certainly sits more like what was it called, like a trapezium or whatever it is. But I remember those wheel arches stick out regardless, so even if I had narrower tyres, it sort of look. That's half the reason when you roll on your roof, the autonomous winch is handy, because if you just flipped on flat ground, you're definitely leaning beyond 90 degrees because of those wheel arches, so you'll pretty much never be able to use your advanced winch unless you rolled on some sort of hill, etc. So yeah, that's another reason why going over there. One thing I do think is a shame with this, because it's, as you'll see, it's like some off-roading it's pretty damn comfortable with, and I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable with snow. It just feels like it's overly restricted by snow. Like, it makes you go just really slow in snow, and I don't think it should be that slow, because it's got 4 tyres on it. I believe, doesn't the Voron AE have like 47-inch tyres? The Tager's got 51-inch tyres. It's only got 2 inches shorter than the, in fact, 1 inch shorter than the Dolphin. So, yeah, it's like, and as you'll see in other situations later on, it's pretty good. But yeah, I just think it's over punished through deep snow. Shallow snow, it's not so bad, but nothing is really. Like, even a highway truck will go through shallow snow that's where the ground's still pretty compact. You see there where I stood up on my nose as well? It did stall when I was completely vertical, but the front wheels are kind of so close to the bumper that, as you've seen, I was able to accelerate when I was almost vertical and still pull my front end along, so I landed back on my wheels, and you'll see it sort of again now. Long story short, the first time I drove at the pipes, my front wheels just sprang off them. I went up on my back and I tipped over, so you see me winching myself, you've seen it dragging along the floor a bit before it finally dug in and flipped me. Again, having the wider tyres on seems to help. Like, with the chained on, when you lean in against them rear arches, the chain don't even get a chance to bite in a lot of the time. Yeah, you've seen it again, pretty much up on its nose. I hit the accelerator and the front can still kind of tiptoe their way. It's a bit weird with the physics on this game. Like I said before, there's almost like a horizontal plane and a vertical plane, so it does hold you in the air more than obviously real life would, but whatever, it's the mechanics of the game. If that's what they need to do to make it work, it don't bother me. Like, once you're standing up on your nose, something went wrong anyway. Yeah, got through the trees nicely, to be fair. Didn't have an issue. Because this truck is like, or Scout, is sort of like, when you actually park it next to a Voron or something, it's bigger than it looks, sort of thing. Like, if you park it next to a Don 71, that looks tiny next to it, so yeah, and it still got through the trees pretty nicely. The turning circle out, I know I've only got the 2-slot trailer, but there's no point in trying to put a semi on the back. It'll start tipping off to the side. Wait, this is too tall. The loaf is just the magic of the loaf. Like, the loaf works, but see there, I went to turn and it just wasn't enough because that middle axle was gripping in, and yeah, I hit the barrier. Whereas another time, another situation, that bit of steering input I did could have made it. I think towing the trailer kind of snapped me back a bit as well, so that I have no doubt didn't help. Again, I know it's only a 2-slot, but to be honest, yeah, it's pretty pointless trying to. Well, I'm allowed to tow a 2-slot. I could winch a 4-slot, but if I'm honest, this did better than I thought. I thought it was going to get stuck, and it's slow, but to be fair, I even turned a little bit to make the tyres go over that route. What I do like about this is it's got some nice ground clearance, and I don't know if some trucks, not the prop shaft, the axle just clips through obstacles or what, but yeah, this thing does. Like, it's probably the fact that it's got 49-inch tyres as well. Obviously the loaf's only got 33-inch tyres. The Don 71 I think is only an inch or two more. The TUZ, like, they're all pretty small tyres compared to this, except the Tatran. Like I say, the Tatran's a bit of a unique one, really. It's like a completely different chassis. It's a lot more expensive, etc. Yeah, going through water, you've seen it slow down when it hit. Like, it gets officially deep there, and it catches quite a lot of trucks for a second, so it's nothing special. But going through the shallow water, yeah, it was it's funny how with these wide tyres, you'd sort of think in real life it'd be slowed down more by the water than it would snow, but for whatever reason it's just punished quite heavily in like pure off-road snow. I turned up there, I was trying a few things out, I was pushing against that current, and as you can see it went very slow against the current. A lot of stuff does. But I went to cross the river here, and this truck floats basically, and what's happening, I am still touching the floor, but I'm just at that point where it's lifting enough of my weight off the floor that I can't grip the rocks enough to fight the current. And if I had the advanced winch, I might have been able to reach that other tree, but again, that's what I've got the autonomous for various reasons, and yeah, I ended up having to go down river and go round. This is on the road just after I normally squeeze through that rock gap. It'll get through the rocks just fine. Stuff this size is all good. I left that bit in to show you, like, along snowy roads, in quotes, like where there's tracks, it goes fine, but then look, you hit somewhere where there's no tracks and it's just, I believe, considering, yeah, the size of the tyres and its ground clearance and all the rest of it, it's like it's being like, yeah, deliberately game limited rather than what it should or would be. Which, I don't know, yeah, maybe it was like they've got to make some difficulty and stuff to the game. If you can just buy one of these and go flying over everything, then completing the game's a formality rather than a puzzle. So I get it, but if I had access to mods, I've done what I'm doing on the game now, I would, if it's possible, reduce how slow it is on snow. You see there, I did it on purpose, but as I went off to the right, it caught my right tyre, and that just yanked me sideways because there's so much friction on that side in the snow compared to this side that was on the road. The bonnet and that, the view to the horizon and stuff is like fine. I got no complaints really. It's the bonnet slopes off pretty much at the same angle as like you can see over the windscreen or over the dashboard, sorry. So yeah, it's all pretty nice, to be honest. It was nice to go through there without hitting anything. It's the first truck in a little while, or vehicle, whatever, that I've gone through there like that. See that mud there? It was fine through it, but again, a bit like the snow, it's like it's purposely made to go very slow in terrain rather than, I don't know, rather than feeling like it would. It's like it's, yeah, been made to do that. Again, I was in high, which does rooster tail a bit in there. Dropped it in auto, first gear auto, like very nice through there, comfortable anyway. This time went for, yeah, the old rock bridge. Pretty nice ground clearance, the bumper's not an issue, so I didn't think it would catch there. I can't remember if I let off the accelerator or just got a bit of an unlucky bounce there, but yeah, it's fine. As you can see, I now drop it in high. You can sort of see with the steering a bit, like when you drive it you'll know more what I mean, but how it is fighting that axle. And then going up here, see how I just cut the corner? I would have been better off following the curve of the path just because this thing gets like such a reduced speed. Yeah, like when you're off-road, or yeah, you're on snow but you're off the paths. And I cut most of this out because it's fine, it's just slow, and there's no point in watching it inevitably get here very slowly. Cutting across this, essentially it was just best off to, yeah, stick it in late. I think, to be fair, or first gear auto would have been fine as well, but yeah, I mean, no real issues, it's just not particularly fast there, but that can be like, because it is a very exposed front wheel, there's no corner of the truck to catch first. That can happen. Not my first time, and it won't be the last. So coming into this mud pit, I got to about here, and those branches are a bit of a twat, but forgetting that, I was kind of like, well, it's, you know, it's reduced speed again, but it felt comfortable. Started turning in though, because obviously nipping along the edge, a lot of stuff can do that. And yeah, it started to go slower, and I was like, well, I didn't really have high hopes for it about 5 seconds after now. Yeah, however, it was just like, well, when's it going to stop? And it just, like, not so slowly it's painful. It was about, this is about as slow as it got, and then as I start to get the front end through this watery bit, I speed up a little bit, and overall it's, you know, slow, but if I stuck along the left edge, I would have been fine. And regardless though, this is very good. Like, this is one of the few things that I've turned towards the middle, towards that little watery bit, and it's actually drove out under its own steam. So yeah, even the P12 yesterday is massive compared to this, and that had to winch itself out about 3 times. This, genuinely, I cut a bit out again because it's slow but steady, but I got through, like, no winches, no nothing. And that's where I was saying earlier, I don't know if the axles just clip through stuff so you're not wading them through, or I don't know if they're very, you know, thin and they just scrape through just fine. But either way, this thing clearly had no problem with a lot of stuff underneath it. Like, because one thing I will say about the Tatran, as great as it is off-road, it isn't that amazing in that deep mud. I've got the Tatrin stuck there before because it hasn't got the most amazing ground clearance, the Tatrin. You can go over some rocks as well, and it's like you've just got such a flat base underneath the Tatrin that if you land wrong on a rock, you'll kind of pivot and it can be a bit iffy. But yeah, for whatever reason, this thing, maybe it's a combination of the big wider mud tyres and stuff, but it has that option which most trucks don't. I know, like, the custom muds on the Taiga is like the extreme version, but yeah. See, the top of these mountains are shallow as snow, so it was going along pretty nice and comfortably. I rolled it. As for landing on the wheels, like, if you fully roll like that down a hill and you're going to have the chance to get back to your wheels, as you can see, it landed quite firmly on its wheels, but if you just tip sideways, you're definitely not making a full turn back to your wheels. The most you'll do is 3/4, and then it'll, like you seen near the beginning, it'll just slam down sideways and do a little skip. But yeah, if you're facing the right way downhill, etc., you can get back over to your wheels, and there is a fairly reasonable, decent chance that it'll kind of slam down on its wheels, which are the widest part, and then stay there. Like, that's what I was saying with, I don't think there's any weight in the chassis. I reckon there is in the cab, but I reckon it's more, say, like the level of the bonnet. Like, I don't feel like the roof is really heavy on this, like the Bruce was. This just feels, yeah, like it's a little bit higher than the wheels. Like, it's, I definitely don't think it has chassis weight. I suppose bits like that give me the indication that the centre of mass or whatever is a little bit higher than, yeah, the axle, yeah, the axles, the chassis, like the bottom of the chassis anyway. Basically, as you've seen, I rolled down the hill. You see how I've winched to the middle, but it just pulls me straight towards that tree, and I edit most of it out, but you can do a lot of this. It took me about a minute and a half. I winched over to them trees, then back to this one. In the end, I did that. But I basically pulled myself. The camera, yeah, like, it's a steeper hill than it looks. The camera doesn't really do some of these hills and that justice. But I get why the camera's doing what it's doing, but yeah. Going up here, started walking up just fine. Started swerving over to the left, but I kind of do that anyway because it is a bit awkward, that last bit. It's best to shift over here. And as you can see, I mean, no real issues at all. Tips here, it was bloody close, but quick steering, and you see when I was on leaning then, scrubbing the axle, the middle one, isn't really an issue. So as you've seen then, the steering was very nice and snappy and responsive, and it got me out of the trouble, but I flipped the Taiga and then I just recovered them both anyway. I'm on my way to quarry, and as you can see, I've got a Scout fuel trailer behind me. In the end, I just had to know what a double cargo trailer was like, but from my other, like, I did the Hummer, and I've done the Loaf, and I've done this. I don't like the cargo trailer, the Scout double cargo trailer. The single's probably as bad, but because it can't have as much weight on it, it probably doesn't suffer as much. Going through here, high rooster tailed a bit, but then I put it in auto, and it, like, first gear auto again was just very nice. It seemed to be the best option. I launched myself down there. I meant to hit this, I don't know, I just, 2 seconds before I did, I was like, well, wonder what'll happen if I hit this. Didn't take any damage. I don't know how repeatable really that is. I think it's one of them, like, time and place sort of, it can go either way, but yeah, I did a little lap. I mean, it pulls this thing up here just fine. While this is here, I did want to mention, I think the Scout fuel trailer is correctly weighted. If anything, probably slightly generous. Considering the maintenance trailer is a lot heavier anyway, but say just a fuel trailer is a beast. In my Taiga location video, I took a fuel trailer there and it almost tipped my Taiga over. Like, it just wants to tip and it's too heavy. Yeah, I think this is actually reasonable. 2 of these definitely weigh a lot less than a fuel trailer, which the fuel trailer might have a tiny bit more in, but I'd say 3 of these weigh less than, I'd say 5 of these probably weigh less than a fuel trailer. Like, I like the Scout fuel trailer. 900's plenty. I don't need more than 900. I'll be passing some sort of fuel station or something, Again, you can just buy maintenance trailers from trailer stores and fill yourself up. So between fuel stations and trailer stores, like, I'm good. I just need the odd top up every now and then, rather than like 2,000 litres behind me. Or the fuel semi trailer, like 3,700 litres. Getting up there, right, I'll show you more later. This thing crawls up rocks very nicely. It's interesting that I discovered that trailer again. I mean, the loaf, he's a professional. He not only cleaned the quarry up, but he scattered other useful trailers back around the map for me to discover. It's like another Easter egg hunt. It's like a prostate exam all over again. Got over Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson pretty well, considering like it's a scout. As you can see, I couldn't resist. I had to know how it'll stack up with the double cargo container. Pulling it along through here, you can see how comfortable it was then when I had no weight on the trailer. And again, this is partly, mostly, it's not really the Yar's fault. That trailer is just stupid, especially with like this concrete slab. They are heavy, but the trailer is, the wheels are too small, they have no squidge to them, so rather than like squidging and rolling over mud, they dig into it. And I'll show you later, they actually dig in so hard I was bending the axles just towing it along the floor. It's just not good. Like, once this slab is on it, it's pushed so far into the ground that it's literally like tractor pulling. This is like one of them sleds that you have to pull behind it. I said to someone the other day, and I mean it, I would rather have it as a sled. It'd be easier. At the minute, it's more like an anchor. I mean, this is how gagging I was to get myself in a loaf at last. I was like, yep, no worries, I'll grab the loaf, I'll rescue you. There's a bit of deep mud there. It gets a lot of vehicles, so, you know, the old loaf, he knows. And you see now, you'd be thinking, oh, well, there you go. And it's like, no, I like to reverse up to the truck, that's all. The loaf knows. He's a professional. He's done a rally driving course. I mean, look at it. The second you put the winch on the thing, I just start moving. Like, it's a goddamn horse of a vehicle. Get yourself a loaf. And now I'm off to be the next anchor point, because I knew I'd probably need to be, especially with this bloody trailer. Stick it in high gear, she's off like a good one. So yeah, I mean, look how much the Yar is struggling. The same Yar that just drove through that devil's mud pit thing 5 minutes ago can barely drag this bloody trailer along shallow, compact mud. Like, it's just ridiculous, this trailer. Started going up here. I was like, well, just throwing it out there. Well, I suppose it's a different trailer and everything. I was towing more, but the P12, I was quite sadly surprised by how little effort it made on this quarry hill when I was trying to tow the Zix without fuel. Anyway, enough of that. I still don't think it's a terrible truck. I think a lot of the American trucks need better engines. The Russians have got pretty decent engines in the bigger stuff. No matter what I did, it was hooked on there, and eventually, even if I snaked it further over, eventually it'd just snake backwards rather than me carrying on forward. So again, mobile winch point, doesn't move, just dragged. I wasn't really trying to drag the Yar, I just wanted to drag it enough so the trailer was up over that ridge. I mean, that rock made the Yar hesitate a minute, but basically there's little rocks and they're just getting wedged on the axles or the wheels of that stupid anchor of a trailer. And I couldn't get up here. I used the loaf then just to boost me over some little rock, but by the time I got here, I could have just stuck another winch on the loaf, but I tried for about another minute or two. I couldn't get up there with the Yar's own steam. Going along here though, I stuck it in the high. If you noticed earlier while I was yapping away, I went up here with the fuel trailer in the high. See, the fuel trailer's, yeah, it's nice. It's nicely weighted. Well, nicely weighted, but it's not piss-takingly weighted. Yeah, high was a bit ambitious, but I thought, you never know, maybe my momentum will carry me up. I was like, well, I knew it was close because I could just, I don't know, I could kind of tell. And the good thing about going up here, unlike that last quarry hill, is there's no little rocks scattered everywhere, which rocks are a bit of a pain in the arse for your own tyres on trucks anyway. Like, it doesn't take a massive rock to just lift your a wheel high enough off the ground that it upsets your truck's grip and so on, but yeah, when the old anchor starts scooping a little rock up, it makes it twice as hard again. That's what she said. And yeah, at least up this hill there is none of that, so it's like I kind of had a slight bit of hope, and as you can see, I didn't give up. I don't really, even when you just see quick clips. If I really know it's just not going to do something, I still have a couple of goes, but I won't go back for 5 goes. But yeah, this was, I believe, first try with the cargo. Oh yeah, just to throw it out there, in the end, to get up the second quarry hill, I unpacked the cargo so it had no weight to it, and then drove up. But this is packed cargo. And yeah, I just kept steering left and right a bit, trying to find where every now and then it'd build the revs a bit because it's a little bit slow revving. Yeah, and eventually it like eked its way up. I'd like to know for my own curiosity how auto would have done, because I kind of went into low and it was working, so it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think auto has got a bit more punch. Started getting stuck now, and that's again, it's the trailer anchoring to the corner of that rock. I did the winch, but I didn't actually press triangle, so I can't 100% say because it was very conveniently timed, but I don't believe the winch helped me there. I think I was just jiggling the steering and it eventually popped itself over the corner of that rock and got up. But right, watch the rear wheel on the trailer. It keeps springing sideways like it's snagging, and it's like, it's a bloody wheel. Sorry, I said it a bit late, but if you go back and check, it's definitely pinging sideways a bit, and it's like, it's rolling, so if it's catching that bad that it's bending the bloody axle, then that just shows you, like, it's more of an anchor than it looks. The reason I came back up here, as you'll see, is I do like this thing's ability to climb rocks, like even like the edges of rocks, the lips and that a lot of stuff catches its bumper in. It does walk up them better than you would think, considering like you've probably drove a lot of stuff that wouldn't. I mean, I couldn't resist. I'm about to recover anyway, but obviously it ain't a loaf. Get yourself a loaf. I did flip it with the loaf. The only reason I edited it out is I needed the clip space. And yeah, it's a yacht. You've seen me flip Derry Longhorns with a loaf, so we all know it's going to flip this. Speed test. I was trying to fight against the steering a bit there, but on purpose. But yeah, flew down here, landed on my nose, damaged myself a bit, and then I looked at the cliff. I was like, hang on a goddamn minute. Like, finally I have a porpoise in life. I mean, look at it. It's like a male porn star pose, you know, you're just sitting sideways, leg cocked up, leaning on your arm, like lady dolphins. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I was supposed to bring a van body, and it was about now I remembered, like, oh yeah, I was supposed to bring a van body. I mean, the dolphin, slope trained, it is also a professional. It got back to its wheels. But as you can see with the R87, it's floating, so it's one of those where, yeah, the snorkel isn't of much use. I was supposed to then bring the loaf with the roof rack, and it was about, I mean, look at the loaf. It seen what was happening, it tried to jump off the cliff, tried to do a diving headbutt and give the dolphin some momentum. Then I was like, right, go back and get the roof rack. It was about now, I was like, oh yeah, shit. I didn't get a roof rack. This was like, I was not setting it up, I just kept, every time I recovered, my mind went blank of roof racks, and I was like, right, dolphin and loaf, back to the cliffs. I mean, just in case you were unsure that the loaf was able to flip the Azov, unless it had as a wedge. No, it's more that the stuff drags along too much these days. Anyway, bam. Lady 87s, how y'all doing? Yeah, I mean, I was pretty happy with that, let's be honest. I was so excited. Finally got a response. I grew 3 inches. Repaired everything, there was enough to just, but whether by an inch or a mile, winning is winning. Cliff flying is cliff flying. yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying, like, it's sort of funny that it has a snorkel when it doesn't need a snorkel. It'd be fine having, I don't know, like the Lodestar snorkel where it's just halfway up the route. Not that it matters. Sod it, I'll take a full snorkel. But yeah, I don't really get where it is you get to experience the full snorkelness, because you just keep going until you float enough to where your weight comes off the wheels, and eventually the 2 points cross and you ain't going any further. So I reversed the dolphin in, stuck a winch on it, made it go in deeper. That's what she said. As you can see, the front's floating. Obviously the back is currently winched to my dolphin, but I released it, switched to the Yar, tried to shit some fish up, and yeah, like, as well, can I just say, in the end, because I just kept forgetting to bring a reef rack on the loaf, I recovered this and I brought a reef rack on this because I knew it was the only way I'd remember. Yeah, I also, the double reason I did it was I wanted to know if the roof rack would weigh the yard down in the water. I don't believe it makes any difference, which is funny considering it somehow weighs enough to make your truck go half as fast as it normally does, as it does with a lot of the Scout. Yeah, I tried to go and kill that tree that blocked me yesterday while I was flying cargo, but I'll admit, I've had better attempts. I missed it by quite a lot. I mean, yeah, loaf approved. He's good. The dolphin was alright. So, yeah, water test was kind of like, nah, that's not doing a lot. But I knew one thing this thing is pretty good at. Well, it's good at more than one thing. I like it. Like, I kept it. I bought it quite early on, and I kept it. Like, I'm just showing you how I found it on the review. But yeah, I think it's worth grabbing. It's one of the more useful Scouts, put it that way, and that's not anything against Scouts. I just don't, like, trucks can do everything in this game, basically. Yeah, it climbs up rocks very nicely, and we're going pretty steep at the minute, steeper than the camera would kind of let you. I mean, you can see the rock more from that angle. So it's having more trouble. Well, not trouble necessarily, but I was getting my front tyre through, like, that gap, but going over the actual rocks, it goes along them very nicely, and beaching is practically non-existent because you've got that middle axle. So if you find something sharp enough to beach it between those two axles, then yeah, you're on top of a wall or something, because that's about the only thing. But yeah, I thought it deserved a little blast up here. I knew it'd be decent. I didn't really know how well. I probably could have jiggled around and got up here a bit quicker, but that's what I do in sort of when I'm just, I was going to say playing by myself. I mean, the odd autonomous rope does go flying on that occasion, but it has nothing to do with winching. Yeah, I mean, even now it's a pretty damn steep hill, and it's doing pretty good. I did grab on the tree just to give me a little boost. Yeah, it's not unlimited levels of climbing, obviously. That middle axle is in some ways a good thing, in other ways it's the axle out of any that you're gonna have to try and, yeah, just have that little extra bit. But bear in mind, I've got mud tyres on at the minute, and I am on a pretty icy rock, so to get it, I mean, look at it, I was like, oh my god, got thumbnail. Yeah, it did pretty damn well to make it here, to be honest. There's not a lot of stuff that would, and I know I did use the odd little bit of winch, but nothing special. Most things would probably have to winch pretty much all the way up this. And then I got my thumbnail, but I carried on a little bit more. I didn't really need that winch, but just force a habit with this thing. I wasn't sure, not that that would have done a lot if I'm honest, but that's the magic of a panic winch. You never know. Never mind that Hummer. That's a different video. I mean, well, I was like, well, thumbnails, possibilities. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, like, even though it's slow in off-road snow and stuff, it's not necessarily uncomfortable, it's just slow. So I flew down here, I tried to ram my Hummer, but tried to yank it out the cliffs. Did overcook it a bit here. Panic winch, but no luck. I mean, I've got a Hummer winch point. Like, who hasn't got a Hummer winch point stuck in the cliffs? I mean, that's like SnowRunner 101. Like, how else am I going to flip myself? So yeah, I mean, we're good. I was prepared for such a situation. I, to be honest, was about to end the clip, and then I spied with my little eye a big fat mountain in the background, and I fancied my chances. So I went for it. That's what I do on this game. I'm a bit of a renegade. I see a mountain, I didn't give a shit. So yeah, I mean, considering it's like, it's almost better on the icy rocks than it is on the deeper snow anyway. I wonder why there's already tyre marks up here. Am I even... I was going to say the Derry. I've been up here in quite a few things, to be fair. Probably not the Derry. Well, I have been up here in the Derry, but... it took a little while, but the brakes got there in the end. And yes, this was surplus to demands, but... why not? When in Rome, when at the top of a mountain, fling yourself off sideways. I was hoping for... I'm going to have to take the loaf up there, because I reckon the loaf would get flying in a nice straight line. Thought I'd landed it. Nope. So you can see the engine there. It is a bit of a tiny engine, like... saying that, the big American stuff doesn't have very powerful engines, but I was going to say, Americans tend to just V8 and supercharge everything, including like a fax machine, which I respect. I would do the same. Everyone like needs quicker faxes. I've never even owned a fax machine. Yeah, I rolled. I scared the shit out of a tree at the end by doing the horn. It was a pretty magical moment. As for the art, yeah, to be honest, it's not like... the loaf is just better at going like a mountain goat and tight turns and all the rest of it. That's all there is to it. It's the magic of a loaf. But I don't know, there's something about this I do like. It's pretty quick once you get up to speed, and that's more a negative again against the Scout gearboxes. Like the freeway one, it's the same. Like the Hummer's quite bad for it. You first gear to fourth gear, it's pretty damn slow. Fifth, it opens up more. Sixth, it finally gets going. This is similar, as long as you don't have the roof rack on, otherwise that slows it down. Yeah, I prefer the bigger, wider tyres. It was surprisingly good on ice, like the icy roads in Alaska, even though I didn't have the chained. And yeah, overall I just think it does some decent things. Like, water's not its strong point, but going like up them rocks and that, and over like rock lips is pretty impressive. It's not amazing, it's not nuts at rolling, but you know, these tests are up a lot of slopes now. But yeah, that's my opinion anyway. I think it's worth getting. I bought it a good while ago and I kept it. I don't regret it. It's about 50 grand. Oh, it's about 30 grand stock and then 50 grand upgraded. So yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. And I forgot to add, that's it next to like a Voron versus a Don. Where's the loaf, you ask? He was taking the picture, of course. Yeah, like it's closer to the size of the Voron than the Don. Obviously, Loaf, he's took his picture. Now he wants in on the picture. Like, excuse me, Don. I mean, look at it. Corner's like a goddamn housefly. Of course I knew it was going to make it. Did I think it wouldn't? Did I care if it didn't? The answer to both of them is no. Yeah, I mean, the Loaf's not tiny compared to it, but I mean, it's bigger than you think. That's what I keep telling them anyway. They never listen, but I try. I mean, tuner approved. Anyway, I can make it 6 inches long if I need to. Just fold it in half. It's easy when you know how. Yeah, I mean, P12's a bit of a beast, but the Yar is definitely more truck sized. I mean, to be fair, now looking at it, I was surprised how small this is next to the Loaf. But yeah, obviously this is a stock one. That was my sacrificial Don that I'm testing that glitch with. So yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. I mean, be honest, you're all checking my loaf out right now, aren't you? You know you are.